Before Aegon the Conqueror was proclaimed Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and sat at the Iron Throne, he and his sisters Visenya and Rhaenys Targaryen conquered the kingdoms of Westeros one by one. After taking the Riverlands and the Stormlands, the kings of the Reach and the Westerlands came together with the intent to put an end to Aegon for good. Those two kings were King Mern IX of House Gardener from Highgarden and Loren I Lannister, King of Casterly Rock. King Mern and Loren marched their forces to meet at Castle Goldengrove, which is the seat of House Rowan. Together, the two kings made up the largest host Westeros had ever seen up to that point. Their numbers were reported to be up to 55,000 men, 600 lords great and small, and over 5,000 mounted knights. King Mern would call their army their Iron Fist. The two kings did not remain in Goldengrove for long, and marched their army north by northeast together as one. Meanwhile, in his camp besides the God's Eye, Aegon was advised of the coming forces and gathered his own strength to meet his new foes. Aegon commanded only a fifth of the size of Mern and Loren's army, but this allowed him to move much quicker than the two kings ever could. He and his forces moved to the town of Stony Sept and regrouped with his two sisters and their dragons. Rhaenys had come up from Storm's End in the south, while Visenya came from Cracklaw Point in the northeast. The three of them watched together from the skies as Aegon's army marched south across Blackwater Rush. The two armies eventually came together on the wide, open plains south of the Blackwater, near where the Gold Road would one day be. King Mern and Loren were pleased to hear the news from their scouts about the size of Aegon's number. They had 5 men for every one of his and were confident they could win the battle. The land was also wide, open, firm, and dry, without a cloud in the sky. It hadn't rained for over 2 weeks, which was perfect for their cavalry. King Mern had brought half as many men as King Loren, and so demanded the honor of taking the center of their forces, while his son and heir, Lord Edmund, would be given the vanguard. King Loren and his knights would take the left and right side of their army. Their plan was to sweep behind Aegon on both sides and take him from the rear, while the Iron Fist would smash through the center. Aegon drew his men into crescent shape, arming his men with spears and pikes in the front, with archers and crossbowmen just behind and some cavalry on the flanks. King Aegon himself and his queens would do their fighting from the sky on Dragonback. The two kings sounded their horns and made forth under a sea of banners. King Mern led the center charge on his golden stallion with his son beside him. Together their forces charged through a storm of arrows onto their enemies, all while roaring and screaming to the sound of horn and drum. They charged through the Targaryen spearmen, shattering their ranks, but by then, Aegon and his sisters took to the sky. Aegon flew above Mern and Loren's ranks, dodging spears, stones, and arrows upon his dragon, Balerion the Black Tread. Together they would swoop down and bathe the enemy in flame. Rhaenys and Visenya meanwhile would set fire upwind and behind the enemy, causing the dry grass and wheat to go up in flame immediately. The wind continued to fan the flames, while the smoke blew straight into the faces of Mern and Loren's army. The smell of fire caused their horses to panic and rear, and all were blinded as the smoke thickened. Walls of fire rose on every side of them, and the ranks began to break. Aegon's forces killed them all as they came stumbling from the flames, with bows and spears. The infamous battle will be known to history as the Field of Fire. Over 4,000 men died in the flames that day, while another 1,000 were killed by sword, arrow, and spear. Tens of thousands suffered burns to scar them for life, completely unrecoverable. King Mern IX was killed in the mayhem along with his sons and all his kin. A nephew survived for 3 days, but when he died, House Gardener died with him. The Targaryens only lost fewer than 100 men, and Visenya took an arrow to the shoulder but would soon recover. The dragons feasted on the corpses of the enemies, and their swords would be gathered up and sent downriver to one day be a part of the Iron Throne. Loren Lannister would be captured the next day. The King of the Rock placed his crown and sword at Aegon's feet, bent his knee, and swore him fealty. Aegon, being true to his promise to spare those who obeyed, lifted his foe back on his feet and named him Lord of Casterly Rock and Warden of the West. Loren's bannermen would follow his example, along with many of the surviving lords of the Reach. Aegon and his sisters soon marched to Highgarden, hoping to secure it before another claimant could seize it for his own. They found the castle under the command of Harlan Tyrell, whose family were the stewards that served the Gardeners for centuries. Harlan pledged his support to Aegon and yielded the keys to the castle without bloodshed. Aegon rewarded his actions by naming him Warden of the South and Lord Paramount of the Manor, along with Highgarden and all its domains. With the West and the South now under his grip, Aegon and his sisters would look to the north and begin their march. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed, leave a like, and check out our other videos on the channel about Song of Ice and Fire lore, including stuff about House of the Dragon. We also have our Twitter page now, @TheRavenshall, so feel free to follow that. Thanks for watching, and fire will reign.